we will be talking about a week 0 game that I really like in college football and today's NFL preseason matchups. Well, 2 of them at least. It is August 26th, and let's get into it. So I'm going to start with tonight's games because they're the most relevant, obviously. It's today that this is going to be played. So what we have, there's 4 games, but there's only 2 of them that I really think have any quality. Now, yesterday I went 0-2. San Francisco's offense just couldn't do anything. Now, Houston has had the most sacks in the preseason. Part of that is because they basically got all of Buffalo's defensive linemen that were veterans. Basically all came to Houston with Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith's a good defensive coach. Let's not forget he had a bunch of great Bears defenses. So it's not surprising that those guys are good. On top of that, San Francisco, I put out that whole thing, that rant and stuff yesterday. And on my posts about the struggles that I think we're going to see Trey Lance have, because personally I don't think he's ready for the NFL game. He just hasn't had enough pass attempts. And why I'm saying that is because the NFL is a pass-happy league. You have to be able to throw the ball in the league to be successful. There's a handful of exceptions, but those exceptions, when they do throw the ball, they're effective. One of them is San Francisco, and one of them is the Baltimore Ravens. All right? They tend to be good even without great passing games because their running game is so good that when they do throw the ball, usually they're open. The problem is teams aren't afraid of Trey Lance. Teams aren't afraid of his ability to throw the football. And I think you saw yesterday in the Houston game, they just sold out against him. And he just couldn't get anything down the field quick enough. And part of that is his lack of reading ability and stuff, but that's what we saw yesterday. We saw that he's going to struggle, and that was against Houston. Now, it was a lot of Houston's ones, but think about when he plays against the really good teams in his division, the really good teams in the NFL. Think about when he plays against the defensive line of the Rams. I just think that we're going to see many struggles from Lance this season, and I think the hype is way too much for him. So just be careful of those San Francisco games. But with all that said, I think they're a good play week 1. So, but that has more to do with that Chicago, I think, is going to be worse off because their talent is so low. Their talent level is so low. So let's get to the games that I like today. So one of them is, sorry about that. Hang it, I hate it when I do that. I got to look something up really quick. But the Lance thing is not a knock on Lance, and I don't want people to think that because it's not a knock on him. It's just me saying that I don't think he's going to be as effective as the hype says. Okay, so today we have Buffalo playing Carolina. All right, so this game is interesting, right? Carolina has already named their starting quarterback. They've already said it's going to be Baker Mayfield. So I don't think we'll see him a ton. We will see Darnold, obviously, probably their 3rd and 4th guys. But the thing is when you see Buffalo play, if you've watched Buffalo play during the preseason, their 2nd team, their 3rd team, their 4th team are talented. Right? This is a very talented football team, even depth-wise. And Buffalo has Case Keenum and Matt Barkley backing up Josh Allen. So in this game, those guys are going to be playing because they're not going to play the starters. But their backups playing with those guys, in my opinion, are pretty close to as good as the guys on Carolina as a starting unit. So as the game progresses, and those quarterbacks are still leading some pretty talented players, Carolina's talent's going to drop off in pretty drastically. And I actually think that Buffalo's getting 6.5 in this game, and I think it's just way too many points. I think Buffalo has a realistic shot of just winning the game. And it has to do with that you're getting two legitimate quarterbacks that have started games in the NFL, playing against some significantly weaker competition that's going to be in the depth chart of Carolina. So the 6.5, I think, is just way too many points. So that's where I'm at. I like Buffalo plus 6.5. I like it a lot, actually. I think it's one of the better plays that I've seen in the preseason. And the second game we're going to get to, this is a fun one. This is another situational type play. We got the Patriots going down to Las Vegas. What makes this one situational? It's situational because McDaniels is going to be playing against his old team. Well, he's not playing, but he's coaching against his old team and his mentor. And I know the game doesn't matter on the record and all that, but it matters to McDaniels, and I guarantee this. I guarantee it matters that his team beats their team today. And let me tell you why. Because in week 1 of the preseason, or week 0 of the preseason, McDaniels was playing at his hometown in the Hall of Fame game. And you saw he was calling plays throughout the whole game to win the game. He was trying, and they won handily. And I think the same thing happens here today. The Patriots have come out and said that they're not really going to play any starters, maybe one series. And I think McDaniels plays the whole game, not his starters, but coaches the game and calls the game, not to evaluate players, but to beat Bill Belichick. And I think this is going to happen. I think that this is one of those situational spots, and we've already seen McDaniels do something similar in this preseason, where he obviously coached and called plays to win a football game that doesn't matter in the records, but it matters to him. It matters to him to beat Bill Belichick. And they actually have in December, they actually get a play again where it counts. I actually think that the -1 you're laying with the Raiders is a gift. I actually think this should probably be -7 or something, but you're getting them at -1. But I actually think, even though with the backup quarterbacks for the Patriots being suitable, the backups for the Raiders are just as good. And so even if you're not getting starters out there, we've seen Stidham be successful in this preseason. So now Mullins got traded away, which is an issue, but Stidham will probably play most of the game. And I think McDaniels is going to call this game for the Raiders to win. I think if it's in the fourth quarter and it's a one-score game, I think you're going to be seeing him dialing up screens and dialing up, deep routes and actually trying to win the game, actively trying to win the game, where I don't think Belichick and those guys will be. I think they have 3 or 4 or 5 guys they're evaluating, and they're going to want to see them play. So whatever that is, special teams or whatever. So they probably won't be opposed to the Raiders scoring or being opposed to them punting. So I don't think we're going to see the Patriots go for it on 4th down. I think they're going to want to punt because they're going to want to see these special teamers. And I think all of it plays into that the Raiders are going to have a pretty distinct advantage in this one, and they're going to win the game. So just to recap my NFL preseason for today, I like the Buffalo Bills plus 6.5 based upon their depth alone, and that Carolina's already decided which route they're going. So they're just going to be trying to fill out some roster spots. And I think that Barkley and Keenum, one of them is probably not going to get kept on the team. So I think that they're playing for a job somewhere else, and I think they're going to try hard. And they're getting 6.5 points. So it's a pretty solid play there. And then on the other side, I just think that McDaniels wants to beat Belichick, and he's going to take every opportunity he can to get a win against his mentor. McDaniels has definitely proven situational plays are effective, at least so far one time this year. So in the preseason. Again, so that's where I'm at. Buffalo plus 6.5. The Raiders -1 is where I got it at. So it's -1 might as well be just to pick them. If you like a teaser on it, teasing it sounds pretty good to me. But that's where I'm at on the NFL preseason for today. Now, I'm going to get into one game college, week 0. In my opinion, there's one really good game to bet on. The rest of them, the teams are too iffy. They're the one Florida State game, they should be dominant, but overall they're kind of iffy. But there's the one game that is not. That is where I'm heading, Mr. Don. I like one game for College Week 0. One game with 2 plays. Right? So it's Northwestern and Nebraska. These guys are playing in Dublin, Ireland. Okay? There is some history of Dublin, Ireland having a football game. It's in 2014. It was Penn State and UCF. It was, I think 50 points were scored in the game, but it was a very close game. And that was a good Penn State team. That was Christian Hackenberg, and they were a pretty good Penn State team. So, Northwestern. These two teams weren't great last year, right? Nebraska lost a lot of close games. Nice. I love that under 56. Love that. That's where I'm heading with this. All right. So, we actually have history, and one of the things when the NFL, college football goes to other places, and especially places that are heavy soccer, all right, these places, their fields are not built for 300-pound men and 250-pound men all over the field. And this is what you get in Division I college football. Every lineman will be close to 300. All the linebackers will be 250. You know, the running backs will be 220. You know, the receivers might be 200, but it's not 150, 170-pound soccer players. Now, this is also a rugby field, but even rugby players are quite a bit smaller generally than NFL football players, than college football players. And this is 2 legit Division I schools, conference matchup, so this matters. They are going to be playing to win. But Nebraska has 22 transfers. 22 transfers. That's a ton. Now, they did get a stud from Texas, stud QB Thompson. He led Texas in a bunch of categories, and he's probably going to be pretty good. But 22 transfers, that's going to be hard in one spring to get that all together. By the middle of the season, they'll be probably pretty tough. But at first, that's just a lot of new faces. They only have 4 returning starters. On the other side, Northwestern has tons of returners all over the field. And when you're a mid-level Division I team, that's how you win. You have 3 bad years and then 1 great year when all of your starters are seniors and juniors and 5th years. And then, boom, you're really good. But the biggest thing for Northwestern here, is that they return their quarterback and they return their whole offensive line, basically. I think their whole offensive line has like 100+ starts. So this is a huge deal in college football. When your offensive line is a veteran offensive line, you tend to be pretty good at keeping the ball. And Northwestern likes to slow the game down. They like to make the game slow, run the ball a lot. Now, Northwestern's defense last year was terrible. It was like ranked 110th. But they're returning a ton of players again. Now, the one thing is none of their secondary has an interception. So that is an issue, but their top tackler for loss. Northwestern is the side here. They're getting anywhere between 11.5 and 13 points. Just depends on where you shop. But the over and under is progressively went up. So people are betting this over, which is surprising to me. Because it was 49.5, and now I'm seeing 51.5. It's surprising to me that they're betting this over. Guys, I like the under here. I like it under 49.5. That's 7 touchdowns. I don't think there will be 7 touchdowns in this game. I think that the combination of the styles of the two teams versus the returning starters for Northwestern, I actually think Northwestern has a very, very realistic chance of just winning this game. But the thing is we don't want them to. I think if Northwestern wins the game, it goes over. So I actually think that you want it to be a closer game in the low 20s, which is where I think it'll land. And I think a lot of it has to do with the field conditions. As the game wears on, will get worse and worse and worse, which hinders the skill players. It hinders the receivers and the running backs and the DBs and stuff. It makes them play slower. And as teams play slower, it means that the offensive and defensive line The offensive line has problems. The defensive line should get better. So I think we're going to see a lot of exchanging punts and a lot of lower stuff, maybe some field goals. But I just think between the whole overall situation, they had to travel over the ocean. They've been there a little while, but it's all new. These are all kids. The field conditions will get progressively worse as the game goes on. And if you watch the UCF Penn State game, the field conditions are progressively getting worse, and that game stayed lower scoring. It stayed at 50. All right. And late in the fourth quarter, it was 30. It was 20-10, and there was a run made by one of the teams. But it was a lower scoring game late in the fourth quarter. Sorry, I say late. In the fourth quarter though, 30 points. So there was 20 points scored in the fourth quarter. That doesn't happen every time. But so what I like here for sure is I like the Northwestern side. Guys, I got it at 13. The last I saw it was 11 and a half. I still like 11 and a half. And I like the under. And whether you get it under 49 and a half, I wouldn't go under 49 and a half is the bottom, right? Because you want those 7 touchdowns to where 7 touchdowns is still an under. Anything less than that, I don't like it. All right, but I'm seeing 51s and 51s and a halves now. Guys, that's a huge difference. All right, 51 is a key number when you're talking about over and unders in college. It's a very special number for college because the 24-27 games, that kind of stuff. So 51 and a half is a very nice number to have if you're on the under side of it. But what you're looking for here is that I think the whole situation, I think the game starts out slow. I think that it plays into Northwestern's style of play. And I think that the experience is on the Northwestern side. You have 22 transfers in Nebraska. Those guys just aren't going to be cohesive. I don't believe that they can get in one spring a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, and 22 new players cohesive. I just don't believe it. Maybe through the halfway point of the season, they'll probably be a lot better. And so later on, Nebraska's will probably be good plays. But I think in this one, I think the line is too high. The situation dictates that the game will probably be lower scoring. Yeah, absolutely. Just tell me what they are, and I'll go through them. But so that's where I'm at. Week 0, I like Northwestern. If you can get the 13, it's fine. Anything less than 11, don't go less than 11. So I'm going to say Northwestern plus 11, and I like the Northwestern Nebraska under 49 and a half. Obviously, if you get anything better than that, great. But that's where I'm at on this one. I like them as a teaser as well. You're even at 11, you're getting them to 17 and a half, and you're getting all the way up to 55 and a half on a teaser. So it's a great same game teaser as well. So that's where I'm at week 0. I didn't really like anything else in week 0, so I did go over every game. Most of them are kind of obscure, and they're hard to get a good cap on. So these are the two I like, the two plays I like, and that's where I'm going to be at. So anyone have any questions? Don't bet against Nebraska. They're coming out swinging. Well, Nebraska can win the game. I'm not saying Nebraska will necessarily lose the game. What I'm saying is that I don't think they'll win by 13 points, or I don't think they'll win by 10. I think this game is way tighter than the line has it, and Nebraska has too much changes. They literally changed their offensive coordinator and 22 transfers, and they're changing their starting quarterback. That's just the overall situation. Is Nebraska is not a blue blood anymore. They are not a team that can do this. It's going to be some growing pains. And on the flip side, Northwestern is basically returning everyone, and they're returning their quarterback, and they're returning their whole O-line. It just fits that Northwestern will be the more consistent team in the game. And on top of that, I think the field is going to get nasty. I think the field's going to get bad. It's supposed to be kind of cold there, like in the upper 50s, which also, in my opinion, plays into the Northwestern side. I just think overall, you're looking at a situation where this game is going to come down to one possession at the end, in my opinion. I do think Northwestern has a legit chance to win, based upon just all those things I mentioned. But yeah, I'm not saying Nebraska will lose. They may not. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring and close. Guys, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if this game is 21-17. Like that was a very reasonable score to me in this one. Do I think we'll see something more like 24-21, 24-20? Probably. Just because I do think that as the game progresses, one side or the other, the momentum will carry them to a win. But I do also think that college football is expecting them to kind of put on a competitive matchup. I don't think Dublin. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think NCAA and the powers that be want to see a blowout. I think they're hoping, and I think that's why it got scheduled this way with two teams that were going to be closer than the line may say. The one that was before that's happened in Dublin in 14 was Penn State versus UCF, and it was actually a really good football game. You could actually watch it on YouTube. Type in UCF versus Penn State 2014 in Dublin, and you can watch the game. It's on there, and that's how I know that there was field issues over there. And also, this is a very consistent theme with field issues, guys. Wimberley Stadium, where they hold a lot of NFL football games, when it first started, the field issues were terrible for the first couple years. It took years before they got it right. And it just has to do with that the college football NFL players are massive compared to the little soccer players that normally play on it. And that's the whole thing. And so I don't think this field will be ready for it. We've actually have plenty of tape on this where this happened. So that actually lends to a lower score as well. And lower score, you want the points, especially when they're double digits. It's just how you should be looking at football games. Low totals, you should be looking toward the line, taking the points on a huge majority of the time. Especially double-digit points with low totals, you should be really steering away from favorites. If your total's only 48 in college, that's kind of low, and you're getting 21 points, you're getting half of the points, so that's what you should be looking at that. But Dawn, if you want to email me your stuff, I can do it that way, or you can ask on here. Either way, but emailing me will be I can take more time and I give you a better answer probably. Here I would obviously be going off the top of my head. Sorry guys, I just had shots and everything today. I'm trying to get this cough and stuff under control. But okay, so as far as the rest of the preseason goes, guys, most of these games are going to be uneventful for the most part. I do think we saw Trey Lance, what we're going to see a lot of in the season, where he wasn't very effective, and I think that's going to happen more than not. It's just the nature of only having less than 1,000 pass attempts since high school. You just haven't had the reps that these other guys have. And I think that teams are going to play a very wide nine version of defense on them. If you don't know what a wide nine is, it's how the Tennessee Titans essentially beat Lamar Jackson in the playoffs a couple years ago. They just spread all their players out and put two safeties deep, essentially. And what they are saying is that you're not going to run the ball on us. You're going to have to throw the ball on us. And I think that's what they're going to do most of the time versus Lance throughout the season. And I think that's a little bit of what Houston did yesterday, and that's why he was very ineffective. I personally, I think Lance is going to have a bad year. I don't think it's going to be good at all. I think it's going to be very mediocre, and I think San Francisco is going to throw away a season in which, if they would have started Jimmy Garoppolo, they were probably looking at the upper end of the NFC. I think the good teams will beat San Francisco this year based on Lance's play. Now, they may beat all the bad teams that they face or all the weaker teams than them. But I think that their ceiling is about 10 wins, and that would be if they upset a few people. So I'm not high on San Francisco like a lot of other people are. I think they're ultra talented across the board, but I think starting Lance too early here, he just doesn't have enough NFL reps. He doesn't have enough college reps. I think it's a very, very tough situation. And I also think that the 49ers offense is kind of gimmicky, and the NFL doesn't allow gimmicky stuff to last long. They tend to get used to it pretty quick. And I actually think we saw some of it last year where they were getting used to it. Deebo Samuel was just the better player sometimes. I think teams are going to key on him more. They're probably going to play him straight up and with a spy. So I think some of that short pass, run all over the field stuff is going to go away for Deebo. Obviously, they're talented. San Francisco's a talented team. I think they're just making a huge mistake by not letting Garoppolo play this year. I think that they play Garoppolo this season, and they have a really legitimate chance at the Super Bowl. I think they play Trey Lance, and they have no chance at the Super Bowl, and that they're a borderline playoff team. And that's where I'm at on this. And I don't want you guys to think that I don't like Trey Lance. I actually do. I actually think he'll be good. I just think they're throwing him in too early. If you look at just the pass attempts are so much lower than guys that got drafted in the 6th and 7th rounds. So just the experience level. And he played at an FCS school, guys. And I know some of those guys have succeeded in the pros, but not as many as you might think and not as successful as you might think. Carson Wentz hasn't really been that successful. He's got to a Super Bowl, but he didn't play in it. He played a lot of the games that season, and he played really well. But that's really the only season that he's been super effective. Even last year, which I think was his second best season at the Colts, Carson Wentz gave up a couple games. The games were on him that he lost. A couple other guys that we've seen have come from smaller schools that have been successful. It took years. Tony Romo was a really successful player from, I think he came from Eastern Michigan. But it took him years. Like, he didn't start for his first 4 or 5 years. And then he was good after that. I think that's what we're seeing. And I'm going to give a comp out. This is a comp for Trey Lance, in my opinion. And I'm going to probably make some people angry here because I'm going to say something about an NFL quarterback that is very widely loved. All right? My comp for Trey Lance is Brett Favre. And, guys, Brett Favre lives off a reputation of being a great quarterback. But the stats don't bear it out. He played a really long time. But as far as effectiveness goes, he had a lot of seasons where he threw nearly as many interceptions as he did touchdowns. He had a couple really great seasons that kind of propel him to this status that he has. But the majority of his time, he was pretty mediocre. And Trey Lance strikes me as a very similar version of Brett Favre. When Brett Favre was in college, he went to Southern Miss. Southern Miss played a kind of run-and-shoot type offense. There was a lot of option stuff. Now, he did throw the ball there, but it was similar to what Trey Lance did, in a very similar situation. Now, obviously, Brett Favre got traded to Green Bay. Some stuff happened, ineffective quarterback play. He gets in. He plays okay, good enough to be a starter. Then he plays for 40 years, and so he has a lot of statistics. He has a lot of yards and stuff. But if you look at the efficiency of those statistics or the effectiveness of them, it was just okay. It was not what his legendary status you would think, right? When you start comparing him to the other guys that have similar statistics, the other guys were significantly better, especially in touchdown interception ratio. Brett Favre was a little reckless, and I think it cost him some games. And I think Trey Lance has a similar profile. I think Trey Lance is a little bit reckless. He's a bigger guy and big arm, but I think he's going to put the ball in harm's way a lot, and in the NFL, they will take it away. I think that Brett Favre is a very good comp for this guy. I know people are going to say that I'm wrong about Brett Favre, but if you go look at the statistics, you'll see, honestly, guys, a lot of NFL teams this year, like that are in the NFL right now, Brett Favre couldn't beat the starter out, in my opinion. A lot of the good teams, and I'm saying if he was younger and still able to play, I don't think he could beat the starter out in many places because his recklessness. The NFL, the good teams, the quarterbacks aren't all that reckless. The quarterbacks are very efficient and very effective. And now some of them have big arms and some of them have like these highlight reel stuff, but it's the efficiency that kind of dictates that they're allowed to do those things. Guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and stuff that throw a lot of deep balls, to throw a lot of passes that other guys can't throw. Well, it's because when they're throwing them, the effectiveness is there. They're not throwing a ton of interceptions. They're throwing a lot of touchdowns. It's not 20 touchdowns and 20 interceptions or 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. You're looking at 37 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That's the kind of stuff. And that's what I think. And I'm a Brett Favre fan, guys. I know you guys are going to be like, oh, you're hating on Brett Favre. That's NFL taboo. But in my opinion, he's one of the more overrated quarterbacks that is a Hall of Famer. I think there's a couple quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame that are significantly overrated. And Brett Favre is one of them. And Troy Aikman is another. And I know people are going to hate on that, but I put up Troy Aikman's career statistics. They're not good. They're not good at all. Comparative to the guys that play now, that have played in the last 10 years, last even 15 years, his statistics, they are bad. Like, in some situations, he probably wouldn't have made teams, or he would have been a backup. And again, I know people are going to say, it's a different era, they ran the ball a lot more. They did. They absolutely did. But there's other guys in that era that were also playing, that were starting on teams, and they have a lot better statistics. And the Cowboys in his era were dominant because they had the best offensive line probably ever on a football field, and they probably had one of the best defenses at front seven, along with Deion Sanders, and they had Emmitt Smith. I mean, Troy Aikman got a lot of the credit for doing not very much, in my opinion. So again, that's just two of the guys that I think are somewhat overrated. I think pretty much anyone could have won, any quarterback at the time in the league could have won with them Dallas Cowboys teams. I don't think it's special. I actually think he's one of the poorest examples of a Hall of Fame quarterback. So, especially when you're leaving out guys like Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett has 2 Super Bowl wins and he's not in the Hall of Fame. How is this possible? I get it. Similar situation. The Raiders were really good at everything else. They could run the ball really well. They had a great defense. Same thing Troy Aikman is in the Hall of Fame for. So, anyway. That's where I'm at on that. Now, there's more than that, but them are 2 of the ones that I really think are significantly overrated. But anyway, so that was off on a tangent. Sorry about that. But again, guys, week 0 games in college, generally there's not very good games. I do think, like I said, there's one good play this week. The rest of them, they're too obscure for me to really want to like one way or the other. But week 1 of NFL is looking juicy. Usually week 1, week 2, week 3 in the NFL are very good weeks, right? Because you have week one, if you are good at understanding the teams will be better that didn't have as many changes, you're going to win a lot of games week 1. Week 2, if you're good at analyzing the overreaction from Vegas, you're going to be able to find good value. And week 3 is the culmination of all of it. Usually week 3 you get a good slate, because what you have is week 1 is usually kind of preset games that are supposed to be competitive. Week 2 tends to be the good teams play a weaker team. And then week 3, you usually get some conference games. So it's pretty consistent, and I think the same thing happens this season. Week 1 looks really, really good. There's some of the better games of the season in week 1, I think. And you're going to get healthy teams for the most part, right? You're going to get some very healthy teams. One of the games I really like in week 1 is I like the Pittsburgh Steelers, not because of the quarterback situation. Kind of because of the quarterback. I don't care which quarterback starts. The idea that their quarterback can throw it more than 30 yards is good enough for me. I don't care which one it is. But the Pittsburgh defense was like one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. They had the guy that literally led the whole NFL in sacks, playing against an offensive line that's all brand new, and the offensive line last year gave up 50 sacks. And Pittsburgh's getting a touchdown. I get that it's Cincinnati, and I get that it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but Pittsburgh's defense is up to this task. How will the Buccaneers do this year? Well, if you have Tom Brady, you are a contender. That is the rule. The Buccaneers are talented everywhere. The Buccaneers' least talented spot is offensive line right now, and which is usually a strength, but they've had some injuries. Their running back situation is just fine. The receiver situation is good. The tight end situation is good enough, I'll say that. And the defense, they're going to stop the run like they have been the last few years. They're going to lead the league in run stopping or be second. And this year, the secondary is all healthy to start the year. So the team that won the Super Bowl is essentially back. So, you don't have AB and you don't have Gronk, but, they've replaced them with some pretty good guys. And they're essentially back. Now, I know Godwin and stuff, but you got Leonard Fournette looking like a stud. Now, he did come into camp a little out of shape, but he's probably in shape now. Tom Brady, and I know all this whole mess about Tom Brady being absent, this and that. It's the preseason, guys. He doesn't have to play preseason football. The team was probably like, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you got to do with your family, and then come on back for the regular season. I mean, I think the media is blowing it up. I don't think it's anything at all. I think what happened is wifey, pulled that leash a little bit and said, hey, you need to come spend some time with your kids before the season. I got some stuff I need to do, and I think that's what happened. And Brady probably went to the ownership and was like, hey, I need to have a couple of weeks off, man, before the season starts. And it's Tom Brady, so they said, okay. I don't think there's anything to that story. I think the media likes to use Tom Brady's name to sell tickets, is what I think. I think the Buccaneers will win their division. The only thing that could stop the Buccaneers from winning their division, in my opinion, is if the Buccaneers drop a couple of these early games, because they have a tough schedule, drop a couple of these early games that they should win, or that they need to win, and the Saints live up to potential. Because if the Saints live up to potential, they should have a good passing game, they should have a solid defense, and they should be able to run the football. So the Saints are one of these teams that have all the talent, but can they live up to potential? Because even Jameis Winston, what we saw when he was healthy last season, was a guy that wasn't turning the ball over. So if they don't turn the ball over in New Orleans, they're still a pretty good football team, right? Because the defense will stop. And now they got, Michael Thomas back. Is he going to be the old Michael Thomas? They got, they drafted some young receivers, Chris Olave, stuff like that. I think that the Saints have a very sneaky chance to win the division, but I think the Saints are for sure a playoff team in the NFC. I think the Saints have made all the right moves, and I think the Saints, even with the loss of Sean Payton, which we will see that we will see the effect of it. I think they got the right stuff in place. Are they better than the Buccaneers? No, they're not better than the Buccaneers. But if the Buccaneers slip a little bit in some of these harder scheduled games, the Saints could overtake them. The Saints have beat them a lot. So, beat Brady a lot of times. So, I don't know. I like the Bucs, but the Saints are right there, kind of, tipping the scales a little bit. Where will Jimmy G go? So I got some research I've kind of done on this Jimmy G situation, and I know a little bit of stuff that I've kind of read between the lines. And what I think happened was is I think that San Francisco got their bluff called, or so to speak. I think San Francisco thought somebody at the draft would give them a first or a second rounder for Jimmy G, and no one did. And I think that they held on to him through the preseason and through the spring and stuff based upon that, hey, one of these teams is going to come get Jimmy G from us for some draft capital, and that just hasn't happened. And I think the reason being is two things. Number one, Jimmy G's contract is not a good contract for a team. It's a good player contract. And number two is that they're kind of hindering San Francisco, right? Teams like Seattle, if they go get Jimmy G, they give San Francisco their way, but it's a division rival. What Seattle's waiting on is them to cut him. They're going to cut him, I'm sure, because they're not going to take that salary hit. And Jimmy G has made it pretty clear that he's not going to back up Lance. So I think that San Francisco will eventually have to cut him. And two things will happen. Either they'll do it coming this week right here in this group of cuts, or unless it's already happened. Has it already happened? It very well could have already happened. It hasn't come over any of my notifications, but if they don't cut him, then I don't think there's a trade partner unless a team like, let's say, a team like the Buccaneers, Tom Brady goes down. Then there's a trade partner. There's someone that say, hey, we don't want to throw away this season. Let's have Jimmy G. Another team that would fit that mold is like the Green Bay Packers. Right? The Green Bay Packers, if Rodgers goes down, and let's say Rodgers is going to be out 8 weeks, it makes sense for them to go get Jimmy G. Outside of that, just that situation, I think that the 49ers got their bluff called. And I think that the teams around the league know what situation the 49ers are in with him. And the teams that are interested are just waiting. They're waiting it out. And when they cut him, they're going to go for him. And Jimmy G is going to have a lot of suitors. How will Russell Wilson do in Denver? So here's the thing. And you guys know I'm a Denver fan. I'm a big Denver fan. And I love the idea that we got Russell Wilson. Do I love that idea more than if we would have traded up to get Pickett or Willis? No. And I love Russell Wilson, but I think we put all our eggs in one basket at a time in our division that was not ideal. I think we should have developed a young quarterback, and in 3 years, when the division has to pay all their players that they've got, then they can't, when we could ascend. So I think we made a mistake there. Do I think the price was right? Yes, the price was right for Russell. I think what we gave away is an equal return. Do I think he'll be good? Of course I think he'll be good. Do I think it will be good enough to be better than the teams in the division? Not even Buffalo, not even them other teams. Just better than in the division. I don't know. The Broncos have not beat the Chiefs in the Mahomes era. They have not beat them. Not one time. Now, they came close last year, but they haven't beat them. Broncos had a big fumble in the end of the Week 17 game or whatever, and it cost them the game. But the Broncos haven't beat the Chiefs. We're not really great against the Raiders and Chargers. Does Russell give us more validity, and will we maybe beat the Chiefs this year? Yeah, maybe. But all the teams in the division, and in my opinion, even Kansas City, got better. I think Kansas City getting rid of Tyreek Hill was one of the best plays they could have done. They got a haul for him, got rid of the contract, and their team isn't going to suffer as much as people think. All right, I think it makes Mahomes be a better quarterback instead of a quarterback that knows he just has the best toys on the field and he can just play with those toys. Now he's got to play with all of his toys. And I think it's actually going to make the Chiefs more effective. So I think the Chargers made a lot of moves to become a better football team. I think the Raiders made a bunch of moves to become a better football team. Guys, literally the Raiders got the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, you can debate it, but he's at least top 3. That's who they got. It wasn't like they got a guy, they didn't pick up a mid-level guy like Allen Robinson. They picked up Devontae Adams, which is widely considered one of the best receivers in the NFL, to go with a quarterback that is really good. Derek Carr is super underrated. I mean, he took his team to the playoffs last year with their coach having his big mess, one of his receivers killing people in a car wreck, just mess after mess, and he still ended up in the playoffs, guys. So now you're just adding great pieces to him, and now he's got his guy from college. So there's a rapport there. They already were good at throwing the football. They got an elite tight end, an elite third down receiver, and an elite receiver all around. Their running game is good enough. The one question mark with with Las Vegas is the O-line. But the O-line was bad last year, guys. It's not like he's facing something new here. They added to the defense. I think the Raiders are a sneaky good pick. And I think the Raiders, I think the last I looked, their win total was over 8.5, right? I think that's a really good over for the Raiders, over 8.5. But back to Russell Wilson and the Broncos. Here's the problem with the Broncos. And here's the problem with the whole AFC West. Every team could be first and every team could be last. I do think that the floor for Kansas City is higher. I think them to be last in the division requires some injuries. But every team, literally that whole division could be 10-7 and be split by tiebreakers. And them 4 teams, 3 of them may miss the playoffs and could be 3 of the better teams in the NFL. I mean, it's just a weird spot for the AFC West to have so much talent in one division, and the schedule's not relatively easy for any of the teams. Russell Wilson and the Broncos, they have to be. Here's the 2 things for the Broncos. The Broncos have to win all the games that they're favored in. Every one of the games they're favored in, they have to win them. And then they're going to have to beat a couple teams that is coin flip games, right? That's the only way they make the playoffs, in my opinion, in that division. And guys, I'm a huge Bronco fan. I just don't think that they're that much better than any of those teams. In fact, I don't necessarily think they are better, but I don't think any of the teams are necessarily better than the Broncos. I think all those games are very coin flippy, and that's what it's going to come down to, is those division games. If one of those teams happens to go like 5-1 in the division, they're probably going to win the division. So, now, you said NFC South, Mayfield and North Carolina. Okay, so I actually talked about North Carolina a little bit the other day. Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are tricky, right? The defense is pretty good. Defensive line is pretty good. When the quarterback doesn't turn the ball over for Carolina, they play pretty well. They're a pretty good team. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter which quarterback starts. I do think Mayfield is the better quarterback out of the 2. Mayfield has had legit success in the NFL, guys. Mayfield has been in the playoffs, playing meaningful playoff games, beating good teams in the playoffs. He's done it. He got a bad rap in Cleveland, I think. Him and Odell had some issues. I don't think him and the coaching staff saw eye to eye on where the team was going. And I think there were some problems there based in that, not based in his talent. I think he goes to a similar situation in Carolina as far as talent-wise. The receivers are a little better probably in Carolina, but I don't think they're vastly better than what he dealt with. Because remember, he had Landry and Beckham up there. So I think the overall situation in Carolina is slightly better. The tight ends in Carolina are not as good. The running backs in Carolina, it just depends on what you're talking about. The Browns running backs are probably better overall for sure, but if you have Christian McCaffrey for a whole season, now you're looking at a guy that's going to get roughly 3,000 total yards and probably 25 touchdowns. So, in my opinion, Carolina's whole season relies on if McCaffrey's healthy. If McCaffrey's healthy, Carolina is a borderline playoff team. If McCaffrey's not healthy, they're going to lose, 12 games. I think it all boils down to his health. And that's why I think they should have traded him and got a more sturdy, healthier type guy in return, or drafted some running backs. Because even a hurt McCaffrey to teams that are already established, like, for example, before Tyreek Hill got traded, if you would have said, hey, Kansas City, we want to trade you McCaffrey, Kansas City probably would have given up a first-round draft pick for him, knowing that, hey, as long as we can keep him healthy a couple games, this is a whole new weapon. I think that McCaffrey's health means everything for Carolina. I think their whole team depends on it, because I do think teams can defend their offense kind of straight up unless McCaffrey's on the field. That's the guy that dictates the defenses for them. Carolina's probably a mid-level team, in my opinion, 9-7 or 9-8, 8-9, one of those numbers probably. With McCaffrey on the field, they're going to contend for a playoff. With him off the field most of the games, they're probably not. That's my opinion on them. It's weird to come down to one player like that, but if you watch when he's on the field and when he's off the field, Carolina is a different animal. All right. Any more questions? I love these NFL questions. I like college football questions too. Most of what I'm going to be looking at college football, so I'm not going to deviate a lot this year from the SEC and the Big Ten. The reason I don't like to deviate from them very much is because they're more similar to the NFL, where the teams are closer in talent. I don't like the big talent discrepancies. I think you get some stuff lost in variance. But yeah, I mean, another really sneaky good team that I think could surprise a lot of people this year, and this is going to sound crazy, but with the injuries happening in Dallas, and if Philadelphia kind of has a weird growing period, and this is going to sound crazy, but the New York Giants, guys, think about the New York Giants here in the sense that they just got the guy that basically made Josh Allen. Took Josh Allen when he was really raw, worked with him. Now look, the Buffalo Bills are likely the Super Bowl favorites. Here we are in New York City. We have Josh Allen 2.0. Maybe not exactly the skill set with Daniel Jones, but very similar. Very, very similar. He can run the football. It's very similar to Josh Allen. Similar arm. All he needs is Dable to mold him. And I think we've seen it a little bit in the preseason already. I think Daniel Jones, his throws are crisper. His movement's better. His progressions are better. I actually think the Giants have a weird chance to be good in their division. I think that division is much closer than people think. Obviously, the Cowboys and the Eagles are the most talented teams, but the Cowboys are getting dinged up now. The Cowboys are having some serious injuries to serious starters. And Philadelphia really hasn't played a lot of their guys yet. And Philadelphia, if you remember right, they weren't just dominating teams last year. They got in the playoffs, but they, as a weaker side of the teams. But they have this great running game. And I actually think that the Giants' defense as a group is pretty good. Now, they did get rid of some of their better players, but I think they are better than people want to think. And I think the Giants, one of the things you're going to get with the Giants a lot is they're going to be getting points. They're going to be getting points all year long, probably. And I think it's going to be one of the better teams for covering point spreads as the underdog. I think by the end of the year, they're going to be sitting at 10-7, 11-6 for covering point spreads. I think they're going to be one of the better teams. I think the best thing in the world happened for Daniel Jones is Dable came there, because I know people don't want to believe this, but coming out of college, Daniel Jones was actually more polished than Josh Allen was. And look what Dable did with Josh Allen. And make no mistake, it was Dable's job to hone and create the Josh Allen we see today. So, and he did it. If you look at Josh Allen's progression year by year, he got better and better and better and better into what he is now, which is widely considered a top 3-4 quarterback in the league. So I think we're going to see a similar thing for Daniel Jones. Is the talent for the Giants good enough? If we see a resurgent Saquon Barkley and their receivers, Kenny Galladay, goes back to form in some fashion, yeah, I think they have a real shot. I think the Giants are very underrated as far as potential goes. So I am going to be betting they're over on their win total as well. I think they're going to sneak up and win 7, 8, 9 games. And they're going to surprise a few people that maybe come in after, like in sandwich spots. So, and I don't know this is the schedule. I'm just giving you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's say Philadelphia they have to play Tampa and then go to the Giants, and then after the Giants, they get Kansas City. It's a weird sandwich spot. I think the Giants can win that game, where Philadelphia's stuck between two elite teams. They get the Giants thinking it's kind of a cakewalk. This happens every year in the NFL, guys. This is a very good angle to be looking at when you see sandwich spots. A lot of handicappers look for this. And you see them in a lot of times when the team is having to travel to an inferior opponent in between two really great opponents. It's a bad spot for them. Even no matter how good they are, it happens every year. Even the really good teams run into the sandwich situations. So I think the Giants are going to get some of those in their favor. I just like the Giants, man. I as far as potential. Like, especially because you're always going to be getting them at a good price, right? You're going to be getting, if you are taking the money lines, most of the time it's going to be heavy pluses. If you are taking the points, usually you're going to be getting a touchdown or better in a lot of spots. So I like the Giants this year as far as from what I've seen in the preseason to what I think is going to happen in the regular season and the kind of point spreads you're going to be looking at. Every week, no, but definitely enough times that they're a valuable team to be looking at week in, week out. Now, a couple other teams that I think are going to fall on their face a little bit, and I've talked about San Francisco's situation. The problem with San Francisco is they are still really, really talented everywhere else, so they're probably going to be a mid-level team to me. But one of the other teams that I think has a really, really good chance of falling on their face that is projected to be reasonably good is the Green Bay Packers. I know they have Aaron Rodgers, but their receiving core is bad. No matter how much they want to hype the Dobbs and all those, they're bad. They're not good. So the Packers are going to have to rely on their running game and rely on Aaron Jones a lot. And Tonyan's coming back from injury, so he's always been an effective tight end. But I think this is just finally too big for Aaron to overcome. And guys, I know they're hyping up their defense, but let's not forget, their defense was powered last year by somewhat of a weak division, somewhat of a weak schedule. And they got some of these guys off the street that had some really good games, right? The Rasul Douglas, he had a run of games where he had an interception every game. Do you think that's going to happen again? They got this guy from bagging groceries. It's just not, it's not a legitimate angle to be looking toward. And they lost one of their best pass rushers, if not their best pass rusher. They lost their best receiver, one of the best receivers in the game. And their offensive line is iffy. Them guys are beat up a little bit. I just think Aaron Rodgers bit off too much he could chew this time. And I'm not saying the Packers will be terrible. What I'm saying is that the Packers will lose to the good teams. I think they will this year. They'll lose to the good teams. And I think that's going to be putting them closer to the 9-8, 8-9 mark. And I think it's Minnesota's chance. I think it's Minnesota's chance to take over the division. And their offense should be really good, right? Minnesota's offense should be as good as any in the NFL. All their pieces are healthy. They got 3 legit receivers, 2 legit running backs, and a quarterback that's cut way down on the turnovers. I think Minnesota should be close to 30 points a game. And I think they're going to win a lot of football games. I think Minnesota's a really good playoff pick, a really good division pick to get in on early futures. I just think that the Packers have lost too much. I mean, you've lost too many bests, and I bring this up a lot in football. When you lose too many bests or too many bests are injured, and what I mean by that is your best receiver gone? Yeah, Packers, yes. Is your best pass rusher gone? Packers, probably yes. Either 1 or 2 best pass rusher. Is your secondary as good? I don't know. I don't know that they're going to be as good. But I think you start losing too many bests. Yeah, absolutely. You start losing too many bests and you're no longer the best. You can't. In the NFL, the talent is so close that the best matters so much when you have a best. Your number ones matter a lot. And who knows how Tonyan's going to come back? Is he going to be fully healthy? Is he going to be fully effective? Aaron Jones is great. Dylan is great. Them are great players. But can they carry the load for 16, 17 games? I don't think so. And I think this is Minnesota's chance to take over the division, at least for 1 year. Maybe Green Bay does some things and gets better next year. I don't know. But I think for 1 year, it's their chance. One more big chip to fall, guys. One more big chip. And this is the Odell Beckham chip. All right? Odell Beckham is reported that he's most likely going to go to the Bills because that's where Von Miller is, and Von Miller is his big brother, essentially. The problem with that is the Bills don't have room. They don't really have the money, but they did just restructure a contract with one of their linemen and got $6 million in cap space. Is this them making room for Odell? I think it is. I think this is them making room for Odell Beckham. And being that he's probably not going to be on the field till December, they make room. They stash him on the injured reserve. They pay him $6 million this year to be on the injured reserve, and he shows up for the playoff run, and the Bills get that much better. This is what I think is going to happen with Odell, guys. This is really what I think will happen. And that is a travesty because the Bills are already really good. They're already probably the best team. You don't need Odell, but it's probably what's going to happen. So be looking for that. I think we're actually going to hear it pretty soon. And I think that's why the Bills made room with cap just recently. So I expect us to see Odell signing there. Now, maybe not. Maybe Odell looks at it like, hey, I can get $12 million over here, which he probably can if he picks a different team, like maybe goes back to the Rams, maybe goes to a team like the Chiefs, or maybe a team like Green Bay. He probably could get that money from those teams somehow. But if he wants to go and have another shot at a Super Bowl, he's probably choosing the Bills. And with all that looks like is going on, to me, it looks like they're making salary cap room for him. And I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? You already have a good receiving core. You get to stash Odell for the whole season. He gets to learn the playbook while he's hurt. Then he gets to practice for a few weeks and then show up for the playoffs. What a deal. What a gift. And we saw what Odell looks like when he is reined in by Von Miller in Carolina. And I think he was number 2 when he went to Carolina. I mean, when he went to the Rams, he was the number 2 guy. I think personally that when Von Miller is big brother in him, we see the best Odell we can see. Because, guys, if you remember in the Super Bowl, in the first 2 drives, Odell was featured. He had like 50 yards and a touchdown when he got hurt. When he got hurt, he was already dominating the game. So if he would have played the whole game, he might have had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, he was already dominating because Cooper Kupp drew so much attention that Odell was wide open over the middle of the field basically every play. And you put him on the Bills that have a really good receiving core. Talent-wise, he is number 1 at the Bills. If you're just talking about talent, he's better than Diggs, talent-wise. Diggs is a better route runner and probably more sure-handed, but just from a pure talent standpoint, Odell is better than those guys when he's healthy. So, but I don't know. All reports are saying that he's kind of going there, and now you're seeing him make cap room, and it makes sense to me. The Bills are trying to win a Super Bowl. The Bills have never won a Super Bowl. They're putting all their eggs in their basket. They go and pay $100 million or whatever to Von Miller. I mean, that's going to play passing downs only, basically, probably. So, I don't know. I think the Bills have built a machine, and I think they're about to take advantage of it. And they're gonna. I mean, honestly, guys, if you're not betting the Bills to win the Super Bowl here when you're getting good return on it, betting them later is probably not a good idea. Now is the time to get on them. You know this, they're at least going to be in the tournament at the end, right? They're going to be in the playoffs, so you at least have that chance. The Bills are a good play for the Super Bowl. They are. They're not a huge value, but they are the top seed probably. They're probably the most talented team overall, top to bottom, depth-wise, in the AFC and the NFC total. So, I mean, they're a good play. There's no doubt. They're a good play. And now, do I think there's some teams that could take them out? Sure. I mean, Mahomes can beat anybody, you know. I think the Pittsburgh defense on the right day could shut them down. You know, in the other AFC teams, you know, the Raiders could, you know, have a day and score 45 on them. I mean, there are some teams that can get them in the playoffs, but value-wise, what we're probably going to see on the field, they're a pretty good play. But with that said, this is what I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be doing more of these lives before the season starts here. I'm going to give some more whole conference breakdowns. Oh, my beer. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, so I'm going to have some more breakdowns of the conferences and stuff. As far as, guys, believe it or not, I think it's going to be pretty chalky this year. I think the ones are going to be ones and twos. Top teams are going to win a lot this year, unlike last year where it was a lot of parity. I think the talent all flocked to the good teams, and I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see a lot of that. There's only going to be a few, in my opinion, that make any kind of noise, that are out of the middle to the bottom. I think the bad teams are going to be bad, and the good teams are going to be good this year. Unlike last year when it was really even across the board. You saw a lot of weird games where bad teams beat good teams. I mean, let's not forget, you know, Jacksonville beating, you know, the Colts, and who did Buffalo lose to? Buffalo lost a really bad game too. Who did they lose to? The Jets or something like that? Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. That's a big compliment. But yeah, I mean, guys, I look at NFL obviously different than if you're looking at ESPN or CBS or something. Guys, those guys are paid to have a skewed opinion on things. You know, obviously, you know, they have people, you know, sports stuff and different things guiding their opinion somewhat. They also play with their heart a lot. You see it a lot. Like, I'm going to use Stephen A. Smith, for example. Stephen A. Smith is a Cowboy hater. So no matter what the Cowboys do, he always kind of bashes them, no matter how good or bad they are. You know, so you get a lot of that on there. A lot of those guys are ex-players as well, which gives them a lot of bias one way or the other. And a lot of times, and I'm not saying their information is bad, because they have people that the stat groups for them are great, right? I am working on that, guys. I actually have been given like the outside rails to a 14-foot craps table. I'm just waiting on it to be delivered, and I'm gonna put it up at my friend's axe throwing shop. And so them videos are coming, I promise. I just got to get this up here. I'm waiting on to receive it, and then I'm gonna build the base for it, and here we go. We'll be on some crap stuff again, and I'm gonna do it a little different. The crap stuff is going to be more interactive. It's going to be more live based, and more based on the idea that that I'm going to be more interactive with you guys on the crap stuff. So when we're watching it live and different things, I'm going to be having other people hopefully there, like my tomahawk chop friends, my axe throwing friends, that are going to be throwing, and I'm going to essentially be teaching them the game a lot, and maybe some people from the public will be involved, and I'll be teaching them a lot. So you guys will be seeing some of that. So you'll get to see like live me teaching live essentially, and it'll be all the same stuff I always preach, because I'm not gonna teach what I don't preach, because I don't do that. I play one way basically, and I stick to it. So that's what I'm gonna be showing people. We're gonna be working on obviously shooting the dice, whether you believe in that or you don't believe in that. I do think it's an effective technique to make your game better. So even if it's just based in confidence, if it gives you more confidence at the craps table, it's worth it. So again, guys, the crab stuff is coming. I'm working on it, just trying to get this shipped to me. And my buddy, you guys know Larry from the comments. Larry's a great guy. Larry was able to come up on this craps table rail. He offered it to me. How far do they toss the axe? I think it's 12 feet. I think it's 12 feet where they throw from. My buddies are dope. They're really good. So, but anyways, yeah. So that's coming. Craps table, and it's going to be a new felt. It's got the ATS. I got it from a casino in Biloxi. So it's got the ATS and hops and stuff on it. It's blue. It's different. I'm going to wrap the edges in pink because my colors are kind of pink. So yeah, it's going to be cool, man. It's going to be a good thing. I have my emblems and all that on it, and I'm going to make it better for you guys to be members of what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm going to start doing giveaways to the members. I just want to have everything set up so when I make the new craps version of it, it's far more polished. It's far more user friendly, or not user, but subscriber friendly, watcher friendly, viewer friendly. Guys, I'm still not going to have a bunch of intros and all that because I was told a long time ago that my channel doesn't need that. Just get to it is what I was told. So I'm going to stick with that because that's what the people said. But anyways, guys, thank you for your time. I'm going to get out of here. These steroid shots I got in my butt are they're like jacking me up. So I've been trying to get rid of these allergies and this sickness, whatever it is I got. So anyways, guys, thank you for your time. You have a great day.